Hello. If you're a victim of home violence, don't leave. Stay. It's the abuser that has to leave, not the victim. The eradication of home violence must not be in the hands of the victims, but instead the responsibility of the institutions of society, namely schools, workplaces, the real estate industry, the sports industry, lawmakers, politicians, hospitals, and our everyday conversations. For example, whenever we say things like, stop crying like a girl, you throw like a girl, don't be a sissy, be a man, man up. All of these phrases actually fuel the fire of home violence. Whenever we call women girls, bitches, sluts, whores, tramps, sleazes, floozies, bimbos, and all the other lovely titles that are given to us, again, we're fueling that fire. Whenever we refer to women, girls as commodities, objects, and products, we're still fueling that fire. Whenever we call home violence a taboo subject, whenever we say that it is none of our business, it's the Joneses' problem, the Smiths' problem, whenever we blame the victim, all of these are contributing factors to home violence. I prefer to say home violence versus domestic violence because domestic violence has such a stigma that it is a woman's problem, and clearly it is not. And secondly, it assumes that all of the victims are female, and that's not true either. So I prefer to say home violence. It's more inclusive. It encompasses whoever makes up our home environment. You could be living with your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your ex, your children, your stepchildren, your step-parents, your aunt, uncle, roommates. And an episode of violence can occur in any one of these combinations, so I prefer to say home violence. The greatest power an abuser has over his or her victim, whether that victim is an adult or a child, especially a child, is the silence. The silence is the abuser's greatest ally. Some statistics. 1 out of 3 women will be beaten or raped in a lifetime. 1 out of 5 adolescent girls is abused by her boyfriend. 1 out of 7 men is abused. By the end of today, 4 women will be killed by their abusive partners, and most of them will be killed after they leave their abusers. So them leaving is not the answer. In fact, when a woman decides to leave, she is 75% more likely to be killed. And on any given day in the US, as many as 20,000 people are seeking refuge at an emergency shelter. 15 million children witness terrorism in their own homes each and every year. You divide that by 50 states, 50, that comes out to be about 300,000 children per state, assuming each state is geographically similar. 2 million incidents of workplace violence occurs. That comes out to be about 33,000 per week. And of those, 17 result in a murder, costing companies $40 billion in medical and mental health care and lost productivity and wages. 324,000 pregnant women go into the emergency room not for pregnant-related issues, but for abuse-related injuries. 85% of all spouse murderers are male. 80% of all runaways come from violent homes. I could go on and on and on with statistics. However, I lied to you. I just lied to you. All those numbers are a lie. Because 75% of all crimes done to women go unreported. So it's even more magnified than what the numbers are relaying. Clearly we have a problem. We have a huge problem, to say the least. We are in a state of emergency with violence. It is an epidemic. We all know someone who is an abuser or a victim. Homes are supposed to be safe, not hell. They're supposed to be our sanctuary, not a war zone. And if one is violent in public, imagine how he or she is in private. For example, Omar Mateen. He is the Florida club shooter. He has a history of home violence. Esteban Santiago. He is the Florida airport shooter. He has a history of home violence. Stephen Paddock. He is the Vegas hotel shooter. He has a history of home violence. Devin Kelly. He is the Texas church shooter. He has a history of home violence. Nicholas Cruz, he is the Florida school shooter. He has a history of home violence. Whether we are going through violence or not, we are all involved. We are all victimized because what is happening is that we never solved the problem of violence at home, and now that violence is seeping into our public places. If we make our homes safe, then our public places will become safe as well. It all stems from the home. I have here a stack of nonprofits, charities that come to my residence. The Alzheimer's Association, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, Memorial Sloan Kettering, Toys for Tots, American Cancer Society, Wounded Warrior Project, YMCA, UNICEF, March of Dimes, Ronald McDonald House, Doctors Without Borders, and so on. Typically, what we do with these charities, these nonprofits, is that we make a donation if we can or wish, or they get set aside, or they get thrown in the garbage. And this is how we treat home violence. We kind of think of it as an afterthought, as a marginalized back burner issue. We kind of throw our hands up in the air and say, oh well, there's always going to be violence. There's really not much that can be done other than what is being done. I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. Not for me. Now, I am not saying that these charities, these nonprofits have no merit, that they have no validity. I am not saying that at all. What I am saying is that there is nothing more urgent, more serious, more severe to resolve than home violence, because what we have been doing has not been working. Victims do not need pity. They do not need handouts. What they need are solutions. They need resolution. I know of one shelter that turns away at least 100 women per year due to lack of funds, lack of resources, lack of spacing. It is a Band-Aid at best. And the child protection service agencies and laws, they often fail child victims and embolden the abusive parent. Cases in point: 3-year-old Bella Bond, 6-year-old Zymir Perkins, 7-year-old Nix Mary Brown have all lost their lives at the hands of an abusive parent under the watch of a child protection service agency and laws that are supposed to protect them. Not to mention the countless number of children that live with violence, with abuse every single day. Clearly, we need a better way. We have been thinking inside the box, we need to be outside the box. We have been thinking inside the box, we need to be outside the box, outside the box, outside the box. 3 places that we spend most of our time right from birth, right out of the hospital, is our place of residence, whether that be a townhouse, a co-op, a condo, a single-family home, a multifamily dwelling, an apartment in a 2-family home, a villa, a mansion, a mobile home, our place of residence. Then we go to school, and then we go to our workplaces. We need a holistic approach to the eradication and prevention of home violence, in which education and technology are introduced and implemented simultaneously in all 3 realms: place of residence, schools, and the workplace. Let's begin with place of residence, more specifically, the landlord-tenant community. What if we made nonviolence a standard condition of residency right across the board? For example, I'm a landlord, you're my tenant. I, as a landlord, I promise to provide you a safe space for you to live. You, in turn, as my tenant, you promise to not act in any way, shape, or form that is abusive. Otherwise, you are immediately evicted from the premises. And we go into full knowledge knowing that that would be the consequences, because otherwise you're endangering all the other tenants in my building. Incorporate into that education, standard education for all tenants, both new and existing, on facts, statistics, warning signs, definitions of abuse, just to name a few items. So that way there's mutual understanding between landlords, tenants, and property managers. Everyone's held accountable, and that silence is broken. For example, it is taught: beating child with stick, bad, abuse. Showing child love and patience, good, discipline. Incorporate into that technology to eliminate the he said, she said factor. Now, let's assume, for argument's sake, just for simplicity, that the victim tenant can continue to pay the rent to the landlord because the abuser is evicted, is out, but that victim tenant can continue to pay the rent to the landlord. What are the benefits for a landlord? You mitigate liability, you maintain property reputation, your vacancy rates will drop, your tenants feel safe, and you're still getting that rent. What are the benefits for a tenant? You would want to live in a place that is home violence conscious versus one that isn't. Why would you want to live across or above or below an Oscar Pistorius, a Jerry Sandusky, a Bill Cosby, a Nicholas Cruz? You wouldn't. It is not enough as a landlord if I provide you with new roofing and siding and windows and a rooftop garden and heat and hot water and electricity and central air and concierge and amenities. All of that is secondary to, first and foremost, safety. safety among all of my tenants in each unit, and then unit to unit. Let's take it a step further. Remember, we're outside the box. What if, as a standard, as an incentive, you are not issued a mortgage unless you're educated to not be abusive in your place of residence? Let's take that a step even further. What if, as a standard, as an incentive, you were not issued a home insurance policy unless you're educated to not be abusive in your place of residence? Carry over that education and technology into schools and the workplace. For example, having home violence prevention education in schools where students learn when of dating age you do not pair yourself with someone who is abusive as per the warning signs that they learned. Boys, in order to become men, you do not dominate women and girls. Have similar education carried over into the workplace, along with quality assurance, research and development, computer and internet training, sales and marketing training. Have home violence prevention education training in the workplace, because parents go to work. Victims, non-victims, abusers, non-abusers, all go to work. Hospitals. You are not taking home this newborn baby unless you're educated to not be abusive in your place of residence. Well, now we have the makings of a system, a holistic approach in which home violence will begin to be diminished and eventually prevented. Isn't that how it should be? Our homes safe, our schools safe, our workplaces safe, and so on. All of you sitting and standing before me, I hope you're pretty comfortable. You probably have some water nearby. It's climate controlled. But just imagine for a moment that an episode of violence is about to occur. You don't know when, but you know it's going to happen. Perhaps a fight will break out. There's going to be yelling, screaming, perhaps a stabbing, perhaps a shooting, and you have to get yourselves to safety. Would you be able to concentrate on what it is that I'm saying? Would you be able to retain everything that is being said? Or would you feel distracted? Would you feel that this moment is stolen from us because you know in the back of your mind an episode of violence is about to occur? If any of you are wondering how I got involved in this, yes, I am a victim of home violence. My father beat my mother on a regular basis. It is no way to live, because home violence steals your life. Because if you have dreams of becoming a dancer, or whatever it is that you dream of becoming, you cannot, because you're too distracted from all of the violence that you have to endure every single day. You cannot think about anything else because you're trying to survive the chaos of violence on a moment-to-moment basis. It is your right to be safe in your own home. So, if you're a victim of home violence, don't leave. Stay. As for the rest of us, landlords, tenants, property owners, property managers, superintendents, real estate agents, brokers, schools, universities, workplaces, corporations, hospitals, lawmakers, politicians, are you ready? Are you ready? I am. Let's make it happen, preventing home violence so that all of us can feel safe where we live, work, and play. Thank you so much.